Greetings, fellow Mist Wanderers. My name is Steve Morgan, and this is DM of the Mists, covering all things Curse of Strahd and Ravenloft. I'm making this video off the back of my last video. I'll see if I can do the fancy thing they do in YouTube where a box appears linking to my last video. And I ended that last video with my cat literally sat here, and she's still there. So if you just, you might have glimpsed her ear in the shot. So if you see some weird movement here, then that's her. Her name is Mel, and she's amazing, but she's old now. She's an old lady, and she likes company and she likes cuddles, which is lush. The reason I'm doing these videos, so these videos are going to be campaign diaries. I don't think they provide a lot of use and worth to people, but the egotist in me tells me I should go ahead anyway. The idea with this one, I think from now on I'm going to do like every 3 months, I'll do like an update on my Ravenloft campaign, which is a sequel to Curse of Strahd. I have 2 players. I think they're about level 14, so they're doing pretty well. And they're about to venture into Valachan or Valakan. I always thought it was Valachan, but then I watched a video saying it's Valakan, so I'm not sure of the pronunciation now. But I wanted to just quickly go through how we got to where we are. So this is almost like a story so far kind of recap. It might be useful for you to see how I kind of ran Curse of Strahd and how I've been running Ravenloft, and what changes I made, if I made changes. And obviously Ravenloft is a lot more homebrew because the book only gives information on a few, it gives you the information on the locations, the NPCs, and a few adventure ideas, and you've kind of got to flesh out the rest. And I'll probably at some point do dedicated Ravenloft videos for how I ran the Sea of Sorrows, how I ran, what have I ran? The Carnival, how I ran Falkovnia, and so on. But I'll kind of give a brief overview of what's been going on in my campaign. Okay, so this is just going to be a video where I just talk lots and lots, I think. I've got some notes on a screen over here, so if you see my eyes just looking over here, that would be the reason why. This contains minor spoil. Well, it contains obviously big spoilers for Curse of Strahd, and then later for Vanisher's Guide to Ravenloft and Ravenloft as a whole. There are minor mentions or potential spoilers for things like Lost Mine of Phandelver, Ghosts of Saltmarsh, and a few other modules. It's hard to say all the spoilers for modules without telling you them all. I can't remember what I used altogether, but I tend to borrow kind of like piecemeal, whether it's adventures or ideas from other books that I'm probably not going to run. So just a warning there. Obviously the biggest one is Curse of Strahd. We started in April 2020, so just as COVID kicked in and lockdown and all that fun time. And I'd already been a player in Curse of Strahd, but I decided to run Lost Mine of Phandelver first because it was kind of the starter adventure within the starter set. I was new to DMing. I was still fairly new to playing D&D as well. I'd only played Curse of Strahd and a couple of one-shots. So I ran my group, which was 5 people, through Lost Mine of Phandelver. I stuck very closely to the book. And a minor spoiler for Lost Mine of Phandelver, they did the whole lot except for Thundertree. Thundertree was the only place they didn't go to. But they did everything else. I don't think I tweaked it much. I don't think I added or homebrewed much. Just played it pretty much straight out of the book. About 6 months later out of game, that was finished. We play weekly, but our sessions are quite short. They're only like 2.5 hours. I gave them a hook to leave Phandalin and go to Neverwinter, and one of the nights on the road, they wake up in a different place with mist surrounding them, and of course that's the creeping fog hook for Curse of Strahd. We skipped Death House because they were already level 5 thanks to Lost Mine, and they went to the Village of Barovia, met Ismark, recruited Irina, and then they got the card reading from Madam Eva. I didn't stack the deck. I know that's a popular thing, and I'm going to do a video about this at some point. I did it what I call semi-random or controlled random. So I think this might have been a Mandy mod suggestion, but it's essentially doing the draw random, but taking out some of the more problematic cards, such as Madam Eva's camp, any backtracking, so took out anything to do with the Village of Barovia, and all of the places in Castle Ravenloft. And I was very lucky with my draw going random from there. I ended up with the tome in the Watchtower House in Vallaki, the symbol, Holy Symbol of Ravenkind in Krezk in the Abbey, the Sun Sword in the Werewolf Den, The ally was Richten, which is an amazing choice and helped to sort of when we did a sequel campaign, having someone who's knowledgeable about the mists and the domains was very handy. And the location that they would fight Strahd in the castle was his study. I was very happy with that draw, to say it was semi-random. They went to Vallaki. They weren't offered the Bones quest straight away. They were offered the Wizard of Wines quest. So they left for the Wizard of Wines and did Yester Hill. They had a brief visit to Van Richten's tower. They'd already spooked Rictavio out of leaving Vallaki. It's a long story I'll tell another time maybe. But that's where they met Van Richten, their fated ally. And I think a lot of people play Van Richten as if you don't, if he's not your fated ally, he refuses to leave the tower, or Vallaki if he's still there, because if he's worried about his curse. But because he was the fated ally, I had him travel around, and everywhere he went, he took his wagon with his tiger in it. And I also had Esmeralda join as well, because I did the event in the tower where she's retreating, having tried to defeat Strahd and failing, and she joined the party for a bit as well. But she was more of a drop-in, drop-out NPC, and there were a few times where she left to do her own thing. They had the festival in Vallaki, and they tried to help the person that the Baron's angry at, so the Baron exiled them. Isaac escorted them to the exit. They wanted to go to the village of Barovia anyway, because they didn't defeat Doru the first time. And they decided to fight Isaac. So they'd already been told by Lady Watcher if they dealt with Isaac, she would take over Vallaki, and they really didn't like the Baron. So they then left Vallaki to it, and headed to the village of Barovia, defeated Doru. They ignored the windmill. They ignored the windmill when they first went past it. This time, and they were like level 6 or something, they then faced the 3 hags, who I still played as brutally as possible, and there were still a few KOs. But they defeated them otherwise. They returned to Vallaki. In their absence, Lady Watcher's coup had been successful. The Baron was executed. I played Lady Watcher was a bit more sympathetic. She didn't kill Lydia, and she would have killed Victor, but given everything he did to her daughter. But I homebrewed that and I can't take credit for this idea. I read this somewhere in Curse of Strahd, and I'd link to it if I remember where I originally got it from, because it's great. His teleportation circle was dodgy, and he's just randomly teleporting all around Barovia. They eventually find him again at Van Richten's tower, just asleep outside, because he ends up falling into the anti-magic field, and it stops happening temporarily. Where was I? Oh, while they were still in Vallaki, that's when Father Lucian approaches them about the missing bones. They go to the coffin shop. That was probably our worst and closest TPK. Yester Hill was the other one. But the coffin shop, a vampire spawn, were really deadly, and we had quite a few TPK, quite a few KOs, close calls. After getting the bones to the church, Strahd appears, congratulates them, offers them the invite to dinner. No word of a lie, one of my players went, yes! When that happened, and I was like, okay. Someone's excited to visit a castle. And then they went to, now on good terms with Lady Watcher, they went to Watcher House and found the tome. From there, they went to the castle, they had dinner, and I gave them a tour as well. So I kind of played it, I think it's Dragna Carta, Curse of Strahd Reloaded, gives some good tips about how to run the castle and the dinner. And had a small tour where they met Rahadin, the 4 consorts, and possibly 1 or 2 other things as well. But the tour was essentially just, obviously, the dining room where they started, the chapel, up the stairs from there to the audience hall, and that was it. It was just like those 2 floors. From there, they left, and they went to Krezk to go to the Abbey to get the symbol. They also did the wedding dress fetch quest, so they took, I think it says in the book that you take, can't remember her name, but she's the burgomaster's wife from Krezk, and some commoners and a mule or something random like that, to Vallaki. Not Lady Watcher, sorry. The Baroness gives the wedding dress. They went back to Krezk, gave the wedding dress. At that point, the abbot freaked them out because the abbot was like, oh, you know Irina, don't you? Bring Irina to me. I want to copy her and I want her face. And then like one of my players literally just thunder waved the abbot, just assumed he was a commoner, and would be KO'd straight away. But then he revealed his true form. And there was a semi-controversial thing I posted. It's probably my most popular contribution to the Curse of Strahd subreddit, where because he was disarmed through somebody casting heat metal on his mace, I had him transform into a T-Rex. And then the bard with polymorph transformed one of his allies into a giant ape, and we essentially just had like Godzilla versus King Kong in the middle of the abbey. And all of the mongrel folk, who I prefer calling the kinfolk, that was somebody's suggestion somewhere. I credit them if I remember who it was. But the mongrel folk / kinfolk, there was a massive battle there. After leaving Krezk, there was a random encounter on the road for some Vistani. Rictavio, Vamichan's tiger, senses them, breaks out and attacks them. This upsets and angers the players, who are upset that he's trained his tiger to attack Vistani. I actually homebrewed a little thing where he'd already realised that was a terrible idea and was trying to train it to attack vampires and the undead instead. But the tiger still had wanted to attack Vistani. They decided to surrender, or sort of hand Rictavio into the Vistani. So they went to the Vistani camp outside Vallaki. Aragorn and Luvash said, well, actually, they're some of Madam Eva's Vistani. So they went all en masse to Tser Pool Encampment, where they saw Madam Eva again. And it's really cool, actually, having Madam Eva reappear in the campaign, so she's not just like a one and done type thing where she does the card reading and the characters never see her again. And there was a trial. I found some resource. I think it was one of the old Ravenloft novels. There's a Vistani trial, and they do their trial in a certain way. So I adapted that. He was actually found not guilty in the end because one of the players wanted to play defense lawyer, even though he didn't like Rictavio, and he was freed. But they decided to confiscate the tiger, and they were going to send her, in my game, the tiger was a lady tiger, and take the tiger to Markovia, where it was going to be rehabilitated. And that was almost like a hook to Ravenloft, which was really good to include that early on, so they knew of a place they could go to after Barovia. And by the way, for those of you who know your Ravenloft, I didn't play Markovia in the old lore because it's very similar to the mongrel folk, or kinfolk as I call them, in Krezk. Ramachan's Guide to Ravenloft instead suggests having them as intelligent animals, so that's what I went with. Oh hey, Steve here, audio only. After recording this video, I realised I missed a part, so I thought I'd record scratch freeze frame on the most awkward frame of my face while I mentioned that they also did the Mad Mage, which I ran slightly different to what's in the book. And after that, when they went back to his magnificent mansion, they got sucked into another magnificent mansion, so a magnificent mansion inside a magnificent mansion, where I ran an adapted higher level version of a Candlekeep Mysteries adventure as essentially a one-shot. It's called The Joy of Extra-Dimensional Spaces, and it worked really well. I'll put a link in the description to my write-up on Reddit for it. Okay, back to the video. Around that time, a new PC joined us. So one of my players, her partner, really wanted to join and joined as a PC in Vallaki. They just found him in the Blue Water Inn, and his backstory was he was from Falkovnia. After one of the zombie sieges, fell into the mists and ended up in Barovia. So that's a great way to introduce them, and another way to introduce a hook to later places to go to outside of Barovia as well. With their new PC, there was a big battle at the Watchtower House. I vaguely remember something to do with the warlock using disguise self to pretend to be Strahd, but then Strahd realising it was a trap, and then there were two Strahds or something. Again, that was popular in the Curse of Strahd subreddit in like the memes Monday or whatever they call it. The Strahd fought them a little bit there as well, and I did this whole thing where in Lady Watchtower's coup, because she's got an imp, I was like, well, that opens the door to like devil and demon summoning, so there were like some bearded devils and chained devils as well. So I went a bit off script there, a bit non-raw, but it was good fun. One of my players says that he likes fighting different types of units, so it's quite and seeing what different monsters are like and how they fare in battle. So it's quite cool to introduce some demons and devils, even if it's not strictly true to Curse of Strahd. So I'm just looking at my notes. Nearly done with Curse of Strahd. They did the Werewolf Den, and they got the Sun Sword. They started doing Argynvostholt, but then 2 of my players said they were moving to a remote part of Canada where they wouldn't have the internet. So I was like, oh no. Because my players are completionists. They wanted to do the rest of Argynvostholt, they wanted to do Berez, they wanted to do Amber Temple. We could have played for another year and a half out of game. But that gave us a time limit, about 3 months, and we play weekly. So that was like another 10, 12 sessions. We quickly finished Argynvostholt. I had it that Rictavio and Esmeralda were separate from the group, and then Esmeralda in a panic tells them that Strahd came and kidnapped Rictavio, so they had to go. That was kind of like the sort of trigger for the end game. You've got to go to the castle to rescue Rictavio. It worked out. We're very lucky that it worked out well in that we had a few sessions where they could explore the castle. They explored the crypts a bit. They wanted to find Strahd's coffin just in case he escaped there. They found the teleporter room, but I took out the stones that were for the places outside the castle because I thought, if they teleport to Amber Temple now, it's going to ruin everything. And they eventually found the study where we had a final battle spread across multiple sessions. I think it was 18 rounds. Strahd roped in the animated armor. Some of the surviving brides came and joined the fight. Strahd was all wall phasing, using animate objects to get stones to attack them. The deadliest thing in that battle, I could probably just do a video talking about how the battle went down because it was wild. The deadliest thing was the Heart of Sorrow. So the player with the Sun Sword decided instead of going after Strahd, they were going to go for the heart. Assuming that it was some sort of thing, not realizing it was extra HP, just assumed that Strahd couldn't die if the heart was still active, and everyone kept getting shaken off the stairs of the tower and falling to the bottom and taking like 20 d6 bludgeoning damage. There was a really epic moment where 2 PCs and Van Richten fell to the bottom with a bunch of vampire spawn, and I'd written them off for dead, and that was when the Sun Sword wielding fighter fell to the bottom, and then all the vampire spawn were obviously then in sunlight and just died 2 rounds later. It was wild. They then managed to, it was a bit of a nightmare to run because I had multiple players across multiple maps. Doing it in Roll20 made it quite challenging. But then they finally got to Strahd. Strahd in the end was like, how dare you use my brother's sword, and just went on a charge to try and defeat the fighter. Nearly killed the fighter, and then was finally defeated after about 18 rounds. Amazingly, no PCs died, but I think there were 2 PCs on 2 out of 3 failed death saving throws, and we did have 2 NPCs die. So then there was the epilogue, and at that point my group went from 5. Originally, at one point we had 6 players, went to 5 players, down to 3, and then to 2. The remaining 3/2 players were happy to do a wider Ravenloft campaign. And then part 2 is essentially where what we're doing now is a Ravenloft campaign as a sequel to Curse of Strahd. Thanks to the events of Curse of Strahd, they knew of at least 2 domains. Markovia, where Rictavio's tiger had gone to be re-educated, and Falkovnia, which is where one of the PCs was from. So they went to Markovia first. At this point, they had... one of my players took a shine to Victor Vladeska, a wizard PC, and one of the remaining PCs who was playing the sequel. So they made a deal with Victor saying, if you help us in the final battle, even though they weren't the fated ally, if you help us in the final battle against Strahd, you can come with us when we leave Barovia, because they knew that Victor wanted to leave Barovia. So they had Victor as an ally. They went to Markovia, found the tiger, who they named after one of the places was called Resef, because it was a tabaxi, and they named the tiger Resef Jr. So if I ever say Resef Jr., that's what I mean. It's Rictavio's tiger, now with an intelligence of 18, can speak common, and speaks in a very sort of posh, sort of educated voice, and has a taste for the undead because she was retrained to, instead of hunting Vistani, was retrained to hunt the undead. So what are you going to do? Take her to Falkovnia where there's a zombie siege. So my player returns, my PC who's from Falkovnia, he was one of the Talons, part of, so he's an air genasi. So as backstory wise, we said that he had two genasi allies, a fire genasi and a earth genasi, who are all from Falkovnia. The fire genasi was still there. The earth genasi also ended up getting transported from the mists at the same time as the PC, and has ended up somewhere. Who knows? Well, I know, but my players don't. The players think they do know now. We did Falkovnia as detailed in Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. So that's Vladeska instead of Vlad, and it's zombie siege. The next zombie siege was going to be 5 days. They had a couple of quests to do. They helped Bjorn, who I played as quite a nice, friendly, sympathetic scientist, because we'd already had the abbot and Dr. Fran of Markovia, so the whole mad scientist thing was kind of done. So I know there's a lot of people who play Bjorn, and I think in the classic lore and rules of Britain, he is a sort of evil scientist with evil schemes, but I played him as a lot more sympathetic. But he was the one, it later transpired, who created the genasi as sort of super soldiers, so I kind of still borrowed that from the old lore. He wanted to create a device that used the holy symbol of Ravenkind, the turn undead effect, to sort of push, when there's the next zombie siege of Lakar, that would push the zombies away. So they did a quest or two to help with that, and then they helped with preparation for the zombie siege, and we ran the zombie siege. I posted how I ran Falkovnia and the siege on Reddit, and I'll probably do a dedicated video just for what I did for Falkovnia, where I'll go into more detail. As they ended up getting stuck outside, it's a long story, they ended up getting stuck outside Lakar during the end of the siege with Vladeska. Vladeska took them to a safe place, sort of central to the domain, and there they found out that the reason the zombie sieges were happening were because of, well, tied to Vladeska's backstory. She killed a lot of people, and she was a soldier and a mercenary and a general, and all the zombies are essentially trying to get revenge. Her curse is that, I played it, that she actually, her dream was to be a queen or a princess. She wanted to drop being a knight, but obviously the dark powers and all the zombies would never let her rest, so she's stuck being like a sort of dictator general, and as a punishment for all the sort of people she killed in the past. And it was quite epic that the PC, who had to basically kill his boss, Vladeska, and that was Falkovnia. They went back to Barovia for a bit. So I know that Barovia, especially in the old lore, and it might be true to 5e to an extent, once you complete a domain, that's it. It kind of disappears, or it's difficult to get back there. I played it that it's okay. You can revisit all domains you've conquered and completed, or liberated, I should say. So they went back to Barovia. I forgot an important detail. While they were in Falkovnia, they met a Vistani who gave them a second tarokka reading. And this second tarokka reading was to magic items and a fated ally spread throughout all the domains of dread, and the clues were for Falkovnia, which was fortunate because they were already there. They had the Carnival and the Sea of Sorrows, and the ally is Jennifer Weathermay Foxgrove, one of the Weathermay Foxgrove twins, who is one of Rudolf Van Richten's proteges, similar to Esmeralda in Curse of Strahd. The reason I bring that up is because they were also left behind a tarokka deck, and I'm using the magic item Luba's Tarokka of Souls, which is another Reddit article I've written about. It's a magic item from Tasha's Cauldron, Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. It's a really cool item to add. Long story short, it has a side effect where souls can escape, and then they could be in the domain you're currently in, or they could escape. So it's really great to like pull people in. You know, if you're running a domain hopping campaign, as I'll get to later, one of the souls escaped and ended up in Dementlieu, which I wasn't going to run, but then I ran it and it went really well. And they had to go there, not to fight the Dark Lord necessarily, but to take out this escaped tarokka soul. Anyway, they got back to Barovia. They wanted to chat to Madam Eva about the card reading. I screwed up with the epilogue. I didn't realise. I knew that the Vistani left Barovia as part of the Curse of Strahd epilogue, but I only did it with the Vistani camp outside Vallaki with Aragul, Luvash, Arabel. When they saw Madam Eva, she introduced them to a friend of hers by the name of Varan Zalhonen, who, for those of you who know your Ravenloft, is a NPC detailed in the Miss Wanderer section. And this worked out beautifully well. The fact that they hadn't done the Amber Temple as part of Curse of Strahd, Varan wanted to go to the Amber Temple, but Madam Eva warned him that it was too dangerous for him to go alone. would the PCs and their allies take Faran with them? And balancing wise, it worked out really well because I only had 2 PCs and a couple of NPC allies, which is quite low, even at like, I think they were level 11 at that point, which is still quite a challenge for Amber Temple, because I think Amber Temple is recommended for like level 9 players, but obviously that's probably for a group that has 3, 4 or 5 PCs. So having Faran there was a big help to them. They also wanted to finally take down Babila Saga in Berez, because she wasn't dealt with, and running her in a post-Strahd Barovia was quite fun, because she's obviously distraught because her boy has been killed. In the end, she wasn't even in Berez. They fought her creeping hut without her. Some of the witches were there that she's allied with, and it turned out she was actually roaming the crypts of Castle Ravenloft, trying to find... there was a whole scheme, I think someone on Reddit gave me the idea, where she was going to try... this is wild. Try and revive Strahd's father and try and make a new son with him or something like that. It was really dark and really screwed up. But it luckily didn't go that far because they defeated her. Before they dealt with her in Castle Ravenloft, they met Casimir. They met Casimir during the events of Curse of Strahd, and we're going to take him to Amber Temple. So they went with him and Faran to the Amber Temple by way of Selenka Pass. They did the Amber Temple, which had a few hairy moments. There was a near TPK with the Argynvostholt in the statue. Interesting thing happened with the fact that I gave Faran Lich spells for story reasons, rather than Archmage spells, which is his stat block. He had the Archmage stat block, but with Lich spells is what I mean. And he cast Disintegrate on the head of the statue, and then they had this epic, massive fight with Argynvostholt, who I didn't play effectively because I wasn't expecting the battle to happen then, so I didn't research it very well. And if I played him optimally, he would have escaped and hidden. Well, not escaped because he's not supposed to leave the temple, but he would have escaped the battle and then hidden and disguised himself as this confused wizard, as is detailed in Curse of Strahd. And there would have been a second fight, but they defeated him before I had the chance for him to escape. And then they managed to get Casimir to the vestige that he could revive his sister. And then when they went to Castle Ravenloft to revive Petrina, they also defeated Babila Saga. They revived Petrina. On their way out of Castle Ravenloft, some assassins tried to kill Faran, who were sent by Darkulus Rex from Darkon, which is a nice tie to Darkon later. After Barovia, they decided they were going to the Carnival. So they got clues. They met Esmeralda. They got clues, so they were told, oh, that clue about the twin sounds like for where the mates Foxgrove, go to Mordent. Told them about the Carnival, told them about the Sea of Sorrows. So they went to the Carnival, but they couldn't get the item there straight away because it was in Tyndall's possession. He's the barker there, and he said, oh, we do trades at the Carnival, like thinking of the Little Bit Market. If you want this magic item, you've got to do a favour for me. And so they had to do a favour for him. They then went to they wanted to go to the Sea of Sorrows, but I had it that obviously they needed a ship, so they had to go to one of the domains that was not landlocked. So they went to Mordent, where they picked up Jennifer, where they made Foxgrove, and then chartered a ship to the Sea of Sorrows. At the Sea of Sorrows, they went to... Their ship got destroyed by a kraken. Escher from Curse of Strahd survived the events of Curse of Strahd and was now a vampirate. Do you see what I did there? And he captured them and forced them to do a quest, which didn't play out the way I expected. I expected he would have captured both of them, but he only captured one of them. And then the other one was kind of like invisible and disguised the whole time. Because they'd helped... because they defeated Strahd and because they'd helped the Markovs get all 3 magic gems back, as a thank you, they offered the gift of lycanthropy as a wereraven, and one of my PCs is a wereraven. Only one of the 2 took it. So the one that wasn't captured by Escher was basically just flying around as a raven and disguised and casting invisibility on itself and stuff. And even though it was rolling stealth checks and stuff, Escher was none the wiser. But Escher forced him to do a quest, but then Escher's ship got destroyed. And then they were rescued by one of the PC's backstory. One of the PCs, the one not from Falkovnia, is from the Sword Coast, had lots of ex-wives, and one of them is a pirate on the Sea of Sorrows now. So she helps them get to the otherworldly lighthouse described in Van Richten's guide. I think in the old lore it was now known as L'Île de la Tempête, assuming my French pronunciation there is sound. And they got the third, oh no, we're going to get the third magic item. But Pietro van Ries fought them, defeated them and took it, and waylaid them into Niranjan, which is one of the new domains listed in Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, which is it's like a cult ruled by a bronze dragon in disguise. So it's their first time fighting a dragon because they missed the one in Lost Mine of Phandelver. They didn't do any of the ones in Curse of Strahd, such as the one on Van Richten's Tower Door. And I was going to do Argynvostholt as a ghost dragon, but then with the way things played out, we had to end the campaign shorter. Niranjan was a lot of fun. It was only a couple of sessions long to just do the whole thing. And then one of the escaped tarokka souls they found out, this is from using the Luber's Tarokka of Souls, I think they used it to give the Kraken, during the Kraken was destroying their chartered ship, disadvantage. One of the escaped souls was a vampire that ended up in Dementlieu. So they went to Dementlieu, and Jennifer introduced them to Alanic Ray and Arthur Sedgwick, who then introduced them to Jan the Sunstar. I love Jander. He's literally like my favourite NPC in the world ever. For those of you who watch Castle Ravenloft on Netflix, I essentially just played him as, what's his name? Alucard. I basically just played Jander as Alucard. It was amazing. And together they tracked down, they needed to get, Jander's theory was that the vampire would try and take over Dementlieu and be at the next Grand Masquerade, so they had to do some quests to get onto the radar of Duchess Sidra de Honor, and then they ended up having to fight this vampire at the Masquerade Ball, which is quite interesting how it all played out. After they left Dementlieu, they went back to Falkovnia because in-game nearly a month had passed, and even though they defeated Vladeska, they were still paranoid that the zombie sieges may continue. So they went back to Falkovnia, and there was no zombie siege, but funnily enough, the Carnival arrived and parked itself outside Lakar. So they then had done the favour for Tyndall and got that item. They then wanted to go back to the Sea of Sorrows to confront Pietro van Ries, the Dark Lord of Sea of Sorrows, and get the magic item back that she stole from them. So they went to Mordent again, and went to the Sea of Sorrows, and defeated Pietra. And now they were in possession of all three magic items and the ally. And this was only a couple of months ago that they did this. In fact, it might have been last month. They then decided they wanted to go back to Barovia for a bit to check in on everyone. They basically, their base is Fidotov Manor, which I didn't run during the events of Curse of Strahd, but kind of just introduced it as a sort of nice to have sort of a manor house as close to a settlement, that being obviously Krezk. And then they went back to Markovia because another escaped tarokka soul was a mummy lord which had ended up in Markovia, had, they believe, killed Dr. Fran the Dark Lord, who has done so many experiments making animals intelligent, it's basically changed him into like a beast type person. And our last session, which was last Sunday, they defeated the Mummy Lord and we're still at the monastery. I used there's a second edition module called Neither Man Nor Beast, which gives a map and details for Dr. Fran's manor and the monastery. Even though I wasn't running it as beast folk, like mongrel folk type people, I still used the information from the module. And that's where we're at. So next session, which will be tomorrow, they will be still in Markovia, but then they plan to go to Valachan or Valakan, because they've heard two people there they know. One of them is the Genasi PC from Falkovnia, who's ended up, he basically ended up in Valachan and got stuck there. And they think that Dr. Rudolf van Richten is in Valachan as well, because when he left Barovia after defeating Strahd, he said, "Come see me in Mordent if you ever need me." And when he went to Mordent to meet the Weathermay Foxgrove twins, they said, "We've not seen him in months." So he didn't make it there. And I have it that he's there because he's obsessed about the nature of Chikuna, the Dark Lord, and why is she immortal? Why can't she die? So that's why he stayed there to check it out. So that's probably going to take us the next few months. It's probably going to take us a while because we've got quite a lot planned. I will, in the next video, which I'll probably do it like around the end of March, I'll do it as like maybe I should do it this is like early February, so maybe I should do it like early May. I'll probably just talk about all the stuff that's happened since then. And that's it. That's where we're at. So that's essentially like nearly 4 years worth of weekly campaigns, 3 arcs, Lost Mine of Phandelver, Curse of Strahd, Ravenloft, up to level 14 in the space of however long this video is, which I think is approaching probably like 20 minutes now, given how long the time is on the recordings. And yeah, that's it for now. If you're interested more in doing a cards reading, like I mentioned earlier, the second card reading as a sequel to Curse of Strahd that ushers people to magic items and an ally throughout the Domains of Dread, then pick up the second tarokka reading, available from DM's Guild, pay what you want. I've come up with 3 clues per card. That's 120 possible locations, pointing people to all the domains in Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, major and minor, including the ones that only have a couple of paragraphs near the back. And 42 fated allies, really obvious people such as the Weathermay Foxgrove twins, Jan the Sunstar, and other people mentioned in that book. But then I read a lot of the Ravenloft novels recently, and it also includes some of the people from older Ravenloft novels and lore, such as, I think her name was Elaine in Death of a Dark Lord, which is set in Cartacus with Hark and Lucas. The Newkin brothers, who were from Borca, but they were in Scholar of Decay, I think it was, which is set in, I'm going to butcher the pronunciation of this, Richemulo, which is the Werewolf domain, and a few more. Thank you very much.